It started with the crunch of tires on gravel, slow, deliberate, too heavy for a neighbor just passing through. I looked up from my porch, coffee still steaming in my hand, and saw an SUV creeping down the road like a shadow on wheels. The kind that doesn't belong in quiet neighborhoods. My dog, Duke, a German Shepherd trained for K-9 work before retirement, lifted his head, ears pricking at the sound. Then I saw her. Karen. The self-proclaimed queen of this so-called neighborhood association. She didn't wave, didn't smile. She just stepped out of her car like she owned the asphalt. Only this time, she wasn't alone. 3 men climbed out behind her. Big, rough-looking types, heavy boots, neck tattoos, and that certain swagger that says trouble. They didn't look like any HOA committee I'd ever seen. Karen pointed straight at my house. "That man refuses to join the HOA," she said, her voice sharp enough to slice through the fall air. "Make him sign today or drag him out." I didn't move. Just leaned against the doorframe, one hand resting near my old 12-gauge shotgun, not pointing it, not raising it, just reminding them it was there. Duke stood by my side, low growl rumbling through his chest like distant thunder. The biggest thug cracked his knuckles, grinning. That the mutt we're supposed to be scared of? They laughed. But I didn't. "Step 1 foot closer," I said quietly, "and you'll regret it." Karen sneered, clutching her fake HOA binder like it was holy scripture. "You don't make the rules here," she hissed. "This neighborhood belongs to the HOA now. You follow my rules." Her voice quivered, though, just a hairline crack of fear behind the arrogance. Maybe it was the way Duke's growl deepened. Maybe it was the way I didn't blink. The thugs shifted, unsure. One of them took a step forward, testing his luck, and Duke lunged. Barking exploded through the still air, echoing off the houses. The man froze mid-step, eyes wide. The growl that came from Duke wasn't just a warning, it was a promise. Karen flinched, then slapped a paper against my front gate. "You're evicted as of today," she declared, waving it like it meant something. I smiled. "Calm. Steady. Funny," I said, "because the sheriff already knows you're trespassing." That wiped the grin off her face. For a second, I saw real panic, the kind people get when they realize the game's up but don't want to admit it. Then it came, the distant wail of sirens, slicing through the silence. Karen's fake confidence cracked right down the middle. The thugs turned to her for orders, but she was pale now, frozen. She hadn't expected me to call backup before she even showed up. And she definitely didn't expect who was about to pull up behind her. The SUV's headlights caught the red and blue flash of the approaching patrol car. Dust lifted from the road as the cruiser slid to a stop behind her. The sheriff stepped out, broad-shouldered, calm, hand resting near his holster, eyes already locked on Karen. Karen tried to find her voice, her words tumbling over each other. "Sheriff. Arrest this man. He's refusing to follow HOA law, and he threatened us with a weapon." The sheriff didn't even look at her. He just kept walking, straight toward me. He shook my hand, firm and loud enough for everyone to see. "You holding up all right?" he said. Karen's jaw fell open, her face draining of color. The game she thought she controlled had just flipped, and she didn't even know how bad it was about to get. Karen's face twisted like someone had just pulled the ground out from under her. She pointed at me, fingers shaking. "Sheriff, he's armed. He threatened us." The sheriff didn't even blink. He looked at my shotgun leaning by the porch, then at me, then back to her. "Funny," he said, voice calm but heavy with authority, "I don't see him pointing it at anyone." Karen blinked, thrown off by how casual he sounded. "He's breaking HOA rules," she stammered. "He's refused to sign, refused to pay dues, refused everything." That's when the sheriff turned to her, slowly, like a man who already knew the ending of the story. "Lady," he said, voice steady, "there is no HOA here. The street went dead silent. Even the wind seemed to stop. Karen's mouth opened, then closed. She tried again. What are you talking about? Of course there's an HOA. I'm the president. The sheriff's gaze didn't move. No, you're not. This land's under county jurisdiction. And I already warned you 2 months ago about impersonating an official. The words hit her like a slap. The thugs behind her exchanged uncertain looks. One of them, the one with the cracked knuckles, frowned. Wait, impersonating? The sheriff turned toward them. Yeah, he said, impersonating. She's been running a fake HOA out here. Sending fake fines, fake letters, fake eviction notices. And you three? His hand rested casually near his holster. You just trespassed, threatened a homeowner, and tried to enforce a crime. Karen spun on the men, her face pale. Don't listen to him. He doesn't know what he's talking about. But the sheriff wasn't done. He walked back to his cruiser and came out holding a folder, thick, official, stamped with the county seal. He flipped it open for everyone to see. This, he said, holding up a paper, is the deed to this property. Legal, sealed, verified. This man owns every inch of this land, fair and square. Karen lunged forward. That's fake. He forged it. The sheriff snapped the paper back before she could touch it. His voice dropped low, not loud, but sharp enough to make her freeze. Touch this again, and I'll charge you with destruction of evidence. Duke's low growl rolled through the silence again, steady and menacing. The thugs shifted their weight, realizing this wasn't a street job anymore, this was criminal. Real criminal. One of them muttered under his breath, she said it was legal. She said she had papers. I finally spoke, calm as ever. She's been waving around fake binders and printed rules for months. Half the neighbors thought she was legit. Guess not anymore. Karen's face turned red with fury. You shut up, she snapped, voice cracking. You don't understand who you're dealing with. I make the rules here. The sheriff's eyes narrowed. No, ma'am. You broke them. The neighborhood had started to wake up now, porch lights flicking on, doors opening, people peering out. Whispers carried down the street like wind. That's her, someone said softly. She's the one who fined me for my mailbox. Another voice, she told me I owed $200 for leaving my trash can out too long. Karen spun around, realizing too late that the sheriff wasn't the only one watching now. The whole block was. The sheriff sighed, took out a small notepad, and spoke into his radio. Dispatch, this is Unit 12. Confirming location and requesting backup. We've got a 10 to 16, impersonation and possible fraud. Karen's head snapped toward him. Fraud? What are you talking about? He didn't answer her. Just looked at me and asked, you got the footage? I smiled. Yeah. I reached into my pocket, pulled out my phone, and handed it to him. Karen's eyes widened. Footage? What footage? The sheriff tapped the screen, and the video began to play. The SUV pulling up. Karen barking orders. Her thugs stepping out, cracking their knuckles. Her voice, clear as day. That man refuses to join the HOA. Make him sign today or drag him out. The sound carried across the quiet street. And in that moment, even the night itself seemed to turn against her. The sound of Karen's own voice echoed through the night, tinny through the sheriff's phone speaker, but loud enough for everyone to hear. Make him sign today or drag him out. Gasps rippled down the street. Curtains fluttered open. Neighbors stepped onto porches, clutching phones, watching the scene unfold like a live courtroom drama. Karen froze, eyes darting, throat tightening. That's not real, she hissed. You edited that. The sheriff didn't even look up from the phone. He just turned the volume up higher, letting the next line roll out. "You're evicted as of today." Her voice again. Sharp. Commanding. Absolutely damning. I could almost see the exact second she realized there was no way out. Her body went rigid, her breath short. She lunged forward suddenly, trying to grab the phone, but Duke barked once, loud, sharp, stopping her cold. She stumbled back, fear flashing across her face for the first time that night. The sheriff slid the phone into his pocket. "That's enough," he said. "Impersonation, harassment, attempted coercion. You want me to keep going?" Karen's lips trembled. "You don't understand," she stammered. "I was just trying to keep order. People need structure. Someone has to enforce standards around here." He tilted his head, almost pitying her. "Structure isn't the same as control. And you crossed that line months ago." A voice from the crowd shouted, "She took money from me." Another followed, "She made me pay $300 to fix my fence." Then another, "She told me I couldn't park in my own driveway unless I paid her a fine." The sheriff's jaw tightened. "So it's true," he muttered. "You've been extorting your neighbors." Karen spun, her voice shrill. "They're lying. They're all lying. I'm just doing my duty." But it was no use. The people she'd bullied for months were now turning on her, one by one. Phones were out, recording every second. The sheriff turned toward his deputy, who had just arrived. "Get those statements. Every one of them." Karen's eyes went wide. "You can't do this. I'm the HOA president." The sheriff chuckled darkly. "Of what, exactly? There is no HOA." He reached into his folder again and pulled out another document. This one carried the official county seal, bold and clear under the porch light. "This," he said, holding it high, "is a cease and desist order issued last month. Karen has been sending fake HOA letters to multiple households, charging illegal fees, threatening eviction, even locking people out of their own garages. There are already a dozen open complaints." The crowd erupted. Murmurs turned into angry shouts. "She threatened to tow my car. She fined me for having Christmas lights. She made me repaint my house, twice." Karen backed up, her voice cracking. "You can't prove any of that." The sheriff raised his brow. "Oh, I can. Every letter you sent came from the same printer in your garage. We've got the receipts from your so-called dues account, all routed to your personal bank." Her face drained of color. The thugs beside her looked at each other, finally realizing they were knee-deep in something ugly. One of them muttered, "Lady, you didn't say nothing about this being illegal." Karen snapped at him, "Shut up. All of you, shut up." But it was too late. The control she thought she had was gone. The street, once silent under her rule, was alive now, alive with witnesses, anger, and justice long overdue. The sheriff folded the document and looked her square in the eye. "You tried to run a fake government in my county. That ends tonight." Karen's jaw trembled. "You can't arrest me," she whispered. "I am the HOA." But nobody, not even her hired muscle, believed her anymore. The sheriff took one slow step forward. "Not anymore," he said. Duke's low growl filled the air as the red and blue lights pulsed across Karen's face. Her empire was collapsing. And the night wasn't done with her yet. Karen's eyes darted wildly from face to face, desperate for someone, anyone, to take her side. But all she found were phones, cameras, and the cold reflection of truth staring back at her. "Stop filming me," she shrieked, hands flailing. "You can't record this. You don't have permission." The sheriff didn't even glance at her. "Public street, ma'am. You've been trespassing and threatening people for months. You gave up your right to privacy the second you pulled this stunt." Her voice cracked into something between a sob and a growl. No. You're all lying. I built this neighborhood. I kept it safe. One of the thugs, tall, nervous, sweat dripping down his temple, finally spoke up. Lady, I think we're done here. Karen spun on him, eyes blazing. Don't you dare. You're under contract. You work for me. The man held up his hands. Contract? You paid us in cash. Said this was legal business. You never said nothing about fraud. The sheriff folded his arms. You boys want to go down with her? Instantly, the other two stepped back, shaking their heads. We didn't know she was fake, one stammered. We're done. And just like that, her army vanished. The people she'd commanded turned their backs on her, leaving her standing in the middle of the road, illuminated by red and blue lights, her fake binder clutched like a relic of power that no longer existed. Karen's breath came fast now. You're all fools, she spat. You think you've won? You can't arrest me. I am the HOA. I am the law here. The sheriff's patience finally thinned. He took a slow, deliberate step forward. The law, he said evenly, is standing right in front of you. And you're about to find out what real authority feels like. But Karen wasn't listening anymore. Something in her broke. She looked down at her binder, then suddenly lifted it high above her head, screaming, "This is legal authority." Then, in a moment no one expected, she hurled it straight at Duke. The binder flew through the air, pages scattering like feathers. Duke dodged, barking furiously. The crowd gasped, phones snapping pictures in flashes of light. That's enough, the sheriff barked, his voice cutting through the chaos like thunder. Karen stumbled backward, still yelling. You don't get it. I'm protected. You can't touch me. Her hand dove into her purse, pulling something shiny. The crowd screamed, but it wasn't a weapon. It was a cheap plastic badge. Gold paint peeling off, a toy imitation of authority. She held it up like it was divine proof. See? I'm deputized by the county. You can't touch me. The sheriff stared at it for a long, quiet second. Then, with a low, cold laugh, he said, "That's a toy store badge." Karen froze. What? He took a step closer, holding up his real badge beside hers. The difference was humiliating, solid metal versus flimsy plastic. The contrast made the crowd erupt into whispers and laughter. You just added another charge, he said. Impersonating law enforcement. No, she screamed, lunging for him. You can't do this to me. But Duke was faster. He leapt between us, growling, teeth bared. Karen stumbled, tripped over her own heels, and fell hard into the dirt. For a moment, everything went silent. Just the pulsing flash of police lights, the dust in the air, and her shallow, ragged breathing. The sheriff knelt down beside her, cuffs glinting in the light. Karen Mitchell, he said quietly, you're under arrest for impersonation, harassment, fraud, and trespassing. The cold click of metal echoed down the street as he cuffed her wrists. The neighborhood, once ruled by her fake authority, erupted into applause. People cheered, shouted, recorded. For the first time in months, the air felt free. But even with cuffs on, Karen wasn't finished. Her eyes burned with something wild. You think this is over, she hissed, glaring at me. You think locking me up changes anything? And that's when she said it. I have people above the sheriff. Real people. Her voice was venom. And for the first time that night, everyone went silent. Karen's wrists were cuffed, but her tongue was still free. She twisted in the sheriff's grip, eyes wild. You'll regret this. You hear me? You'll all regret this. The sheriff ignored her. He stood her up beside the cruiser and motioned to a deputy. Bag her purse, get her phone for evidence. Karen laughed, a sharp, broken sound. "Good," she said. "Then let everyone hear." The sheriff raised an eyebrow. "Hear what?" "Proof," she hissed. "Proof that I'm protected." Against his better judgment, the deputy powered the phone and placed it on speaker. Karen's trembling fingers dialed fast. The crowd fell silent. The line clicked. A man's voice answered, smooth but tense. "Karen, what now?" Karen's tone flipped from hysteria to desperation. "They're arresting me." "You promised protection." Every camera phone on the street caught it. The sheriff's eyes narrowed. "Who is this?" There was a pause, then nervous laughter from the other end. "Sheriff?" Wrong number." Click. The call ended. For a heartbeat no one moved. Then murmurs rippled through the crowd. "Wait, that sounded like Councilman Briggs. The guy from the county meetings. Oh my God." The sheriff's face hardened. He turned to his deputy. "Run that number through dispatch. Record everything." Karen's shoulders slumped. Whatever fight she had left drained away. The world that had obeyed her fake rules was gone, now even the man she'd counted on was running for cover. The sheriff faced the crowd. "I'm not here to play politics," he said. "But it looks like your so-called HOA queen had friends in high places. We'll see how deep it goes." He turned back to me. "You did right calling this in early. If you hadn't had that footage, she'd be suing half the block tomorrow." I nodded. "Wasn't about revenge, Sheriff. It was about peace." Duke settled beside me, calm again, tail thumping against the porch. The tension in his body melted away as if he knew the job was done. The sheriff's deputy opened the back door of the cruiser. Karen resisted one last time, twisting toward the cameras. "You all think you're free now," she screamed. "Wait until you see what happens when they find out." The door slammed shut, silencing her voice behind the glass. Neighbors stood in clusters, whispering, filming, shaking their heads. Someone started clapping softly, others joined. The sound spread, applause rolling through the street that used to be ruled by fear. The sheriff watched her car disappear down the hill, lights flashing across the trees. "Funny thing," he said quietly. "People like her always think power is something you steal. Never lasts long." He tipped his hat, turned toward his cruiser, then paused. "We'll send a deputy tomorrow to take your statement. Keep that footage safe." "Already uploaded," I said. He smiled faintly. "Smart man." When the last patrol car rolled away, silence fell again. A peaceful kind of silence this time. The porch light flickered across the scattered pages of Karen's fake binder, still lying in the dust. I picked one up, bold letters across the top, Homeowners Association contract, mandatory participation. Below it, her forged signature. I folded the page once and dropped it into the trash. Duke barked once, short and satisfied. Across the street, a neighbor called out, "What now?" I looked around at the people, tired, relieved, finally smiling. "Now," I said, "we start living like neighbors again." The night air carried the words down the quiet block. Somewhere far off, thunder rolled, maybe a storm, maybe just the echo of a fight finally over. Inside the county building, phones were already ringing, because Councilman Briggs had a lot of explaining to do. And as for Karen, her little kingdom of lies had fallen. This time, the law wasn't hers to make.